It's hard to decide between the IELTS and the TOEFL. Some of the tasks are similar while others are very different. You need to find the test that helps you get the highest score. So which test is best for you? I've taken both the IELTS and the TOEFL, and in this video, I show you how to choose between the two tests. We compare the length of the tests, the different sections, reading, writing, listening and speaking, the cost, scoring, where the tests are accepted, and I'm going to show you a new feature of the IELTS that may be crucial for your decision. If you have to decide between the IELTS and the TOEFL, this video is for you. By the end of this video, you will know which test to choose. If you are going to take your IELTS or TOEFL soon, check out my courses where I teach you everything you need to score high. I show you step by step how to solve the questions, and we do many practice tests together so you will feel confident for your test. You can find the link to my courses in the description box. And now let's get started. The first point that may be crucial for your decision is the length of the tests. In the past, the TOEFL was really long. Now it's much shorter than the IELTS. The IELTS is about 2 hours and 45 minutes, while the TOEFL is only 2 hours. Guys, this does make a difference. It's really challenging to concentrate for a longer period of time. 2 hours is already quite demanding. When you take one of the tests, you will notice that it's quite hard to stay focused all the time. If you get tired with a long test, then consider taking the TOEFL because it's much shorter. Now, let's compare the different sections of the IELTS and the TOEFL. They differ a lot in certain respects, so this is definitely going to influence your decision. Let's start with the reading section. Both the IELTS and the TOEFL have a reading section, but the reading tests look very different. The TOEFL has 2 passages with 10 questions each. All the questions are multiple choice, so you pick the best answer. By contrast, the IELTS has 3 passages and 40 questions. You may see multiple choice questions on the IELTS. However, there are lots of different question types. You may also have to fill in blanks, label a diagram, or fill out a table. So there are a lot of question types you need to become familiar with before taking the IELTS. The topics are academic on both tests, but in my experience, the IELTS passages may be a little easier to understand. The TOEFL puts lots of facts into the test due to the multiple choice structure, and this can make the passages hard to understand. Every time I take the IELTS, I finish the reading test well before the time is over and still have some time left to check my answers. I don't have that much time left when taking the TOEFL. To decide which is the best choice for you, try a practice test of both to see which one you like better. Next comes the writing section. You will find 2 writing questions on both tests. That's the only similarity. The questions are very different. For the IELTS, the first writing task is describing trends in a graph or chart. To get a high score, you need to be good at talking about data and summarizing a lot of information. Some people are good at this, others hate it. In the beginning, I found it quite hard describing a chart because I didn't know what to focus on. There are so many different things you can describe, and you really need to know what the examiner wants you to talk about to score high. To figure out whether you like that, try a practice question and then decide how you feel about this. IELTS Writing Task 2 is your opinion about a topic. This question really allows you to showcase your language skills. Your final essay should be a solid argument presenting your viewpoint. I like Task 2 because it's always about an interesting topic everyone is familiar with. You should write over 150 words for Task 1 and over 250 words for Task 2. TOEFL writing is very different from IELTS writing. Task 1 is the integrated task, which means that you have to summarize information from more than one source. You hear a recorded lecture and read a passage. Then you describe the main points. You have to write between 200 and 300 words. If you're not strong at listening and taking notes, task 1 can be really hard. Task 2 is set up like a classroom chat room. A professor gives a topic, 2 students respond, and you have to add your own viewpoint. You need to write over 100 words, but usually not more than 150. This question is interesting because you need to express your view, but you don't have to write a formal essay. In my opinion, it's easier than both IELTS writing tasks because it's shorter and more casual. In the end, whether IELTS writing or TOEFL writing is better for you is a matter of personal preference. Ask yourself which skills you know best. Also, have a look at practice tests to see which tasks you like better. From my experience, it's harder to get a high band score in IELTS writing than TOEFL writing. So if writing is not your strength, you may want to consider taking the TOEFL. If you find this video helpful, please hit the like button. Also, comment down below whether you prefer IELTS writing or TOEFL writing. I would love to know. Now, let's go on with comparing the 2 tests, so you can decide which one to choose. We will continue with the listening section. The difference between IELTS and TOEFL listening is similar to that in the reading section. There are different types of questions. In the TOEFL, you only have multiple choice questions. The IELTS test has multiple choice questions too. However, it also has questions that refer to matching items from different lists, filling in tables or charts, and labeling diagrams. So again, there are lots of different question types here. There are a total of 4 recordings in the IELTS. They include 1 person talking and conversations between more than 1 person. You have 40 questions to answer in total. In the TOEFL, you hear 3 lectures and 2 conversations. Each lecture has 6 questions and each conversation has 5 questions. For both, you only hear the passage once. In general, if you like the structure of IELTS reading, you will like the structure of IELTS listening too. If the variety of questions on the IELTS is a bit scary, you may prefer the multiple choice structure of the TOEFL. Another important point is that in IELTS listening, you answer the questions while listening. By contrast, in the TOEFL, you answer the questions after you have listened to the recordings. Both styles have their advantages and disadvantages. In the IELTS, it can be difficult to listen and write at the same time. In the TOEFL, you need to take effective notes to be able to answer the questions later. So when deciding between the 2 tests, think about what works best for you. Now, let's have a look at the speaking section. The speaking section is a deciding factor for many people when deciding whether to take the IELTS or TOEFL. First, the section is given at different times. For the TOEFL, you take the speaking test directly after the listening section. For the IELTS, you schedule the speaking test separately. You can take it up to a week before or after the rest of the test, depending on your preferences. For example, if you want, you can do IELTS speaking first and get it out of the way. I think it's great to have it on a different day because you can relax and prepare between the days. It's less stressful for me than taking all of the sections on the same day. When I took the IELTS in the test center, I always took the speaking test on the same day because I didn't want to travel to the test center twice. I don't recommend doing that. I found it quite stressful doing all the sections of the IELTS on the same day. It was exhausting and really impacted my concentration. If you have the possibility to take IELTS speaking on a different day, I can highly recommend doing that. However, if you get nervous talking to a real person, you might prefer the TOEFL. The TOEFL has you record your response and it's later reviewed by the examiners. But if you hate talking to a computer, take the IELTS. You talk to a real person at the test center. If you're taking the IELTS online from your home, you talk to a person using a video call. Another factor you should consider when making your decision is the cost. The prices are often similar, especially for the online versions, that is, the IELTS Online and the TOEFL Home Edition. But if you go to a test center, there may be additional expenses in taking the test. Don't forget the price of travel and a hotel room if you need one. Plus, the cost of the test is linked to the exchange rate. Sometimes they cost more depending on the strength of the money in your country. These are all points that you should take into account when thinking about the cost of the test. Also, consider the scoring before choosing a test. The TOEFL gives a score of 0 to 30 on each section, with a total score of 0 to 120. The IELTS gives what is called a band score on each section and a band score for the test. You can get 0 to 9 on each section and 0 to 9 for the whole test. The TOEFL does best at testing middle-range students. It's not the best for high levels. If you communicate at a high level of English, you might want to take the IELTS to demonstrate that you really do have near fluency. What's also important is when you receive your scores. The IELTS gives results of the computer-based tests between 1 and 5 days after taking the test. That's fast. The TOEFL is usually 4 to 8 days. So if you have a deadline coming soon, consider the IELTS. Of course, if your institution only accepts one of the tests, that's the test you need to take. Over 11,000 institutions accept the IELTS and over 10,000 institutions accept the TOEFL. They aren't always the same ones though. The IELTS is more common in the UK and Australia, while the TOEFL is more common in the US. Therefore, check whether the place you are applying accepts the IELTS, TOEFL or both. If it only accepts one, then you have no choice, you must take this test. But if you can choose, there is one final point that may determine your decision. The IELTS now has a new feature called One Skill Retake. This means that you can take one section again within 60 days of the original test. So let's say you don't get the score you need in IELTS speaking. Then you can take the speaking test again without having to take the whole test. This service comes at a big cost though. You have to pay for it. However, it's really useful if you must have a certain score in one section. Plus, it can make you more relaxed. If you know you can take a section over, you don't feel as stressed and you might just do better. The TOEFL doesn't have this feature, which is too bad. Of course, you can take the TOEFL any number of times you want, as long as they are at least 12 days apart. However, you have to take the whole test, which is a big investment of time and money. So if you need a certain score in one or several sections, consider the IELTS. I think this option is quite attractive because it can really help you if you miss the score you need by a few points. That's it. These are the points to consider when deciding whether to take the IELTS or TOEFL. I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, don't forget to like and subscribe. Also, share this video with your friends so they know whether to choose the IELTS or the TOEFL. See you in the next video.